Once upon a time, in a quaint village nestled between rolling hills, there lived two men whose lives were as contrasting as the sun and the moon. One was a wealthy man named Mr. Richard, and the other was a poor man named John. Mr. Richard was known throughout the village for his opulent lifestyle. He lived in a grand mansion at the top of the hill, surrounded by lush gardens and a staff to cater to his every need. He owned vast lands, successful businesses, and had a reputation for extravagance. His days were filled with lavish parties, fine dining, and luxurious vacations. He was often seen in the finest suits, driving the most expensive cars, and his wealth seemed to know no bounds. On the other side of the village, at the base of the same hill, lived John. He and his family resided in a small, weathered cottage. John worked as a laborer, toiling away in the fields day in and day out, trying to make ends meet. His earnings were modest, just enough to put food on the table for his wife and children. He wore tattered clothes and relied on a rusty old bicycle to commute to work. Life in the village carried on, with Mr. Richard's grandeur and John's simplicity standing as stark contrasts to one another. The two men rarely interacted, as they belonged to different worlds, but little did they know that fate had a plan to bring them together. One stormy night, a violent tempest swept through the village. The winds howled, and the rain poured in torrents. It was a night of chaos and destruction. Mr. Richard's grand mansion, perched atop the hill, was severely damaged by the storm. Desperate and displaced, he had to seek shelter somewhere. With no other options, Mr. Richard made his way down the hill and reached John's humble cottage. He knocked on the door, soaked to the bone and shivering from the cold. John opened the door and, without hesitation, welcomed him in. John offered Mr. Richard dry clothes, a warm meal, and a place by the fire. Mr. Richard was humbled by John's kindness and generosity. Despite having so little, John shared what he had. As they sat by the fire, sharing stories and laughter, Mr. Richard began to see a different side of life. He realized that happiness could be found in simplicity, in the love of family, and in the warmth of human connection. He saw how content and close-knit John's family was despite their modest means. The storm raged on throughout the night, but Mr. Richard and John's family found comfort in each other's company. The contrast between their lives became painfully evident to Mr. Richard. He had been so focused on accumulating wealth and living a life of luxury that he had neglected the true values of life, love, compassion, and community. As the storm finally subsided, and the first rays of the morning sun broke through the clouds, Mr. Richard knew that he had experienced a profound change. He realized that he needed to redefine his priorities and his perspective on life. Over the next few months, Mr. Richard began to transform himself. He started donating a significant portion of his wealth to help the less fortunate in the village. He also spent more time with his family, strengthening their bonds. He found immense joy in making a positive impact on the lives of others. Word of Mr. Richard's transformation quickly spread throughout the village. Inspired by his actions, other villagers started to come together to support one another in times of need. The story of the rich man and the poor man had become a symbol of unity and compassion. In the end, both Mr. Richard and John learned valuable lessons from each other. Mr. Richard learned the importance of kindness, empathy, and community, while John realized that even the wealthiest individuals had their own struggles and insecurities. Their unlikely friendship served as a powerful reminder that the divide between the rich and the poor could be bridged by understanding and human connection. The village, once divided by wealth, now thrived on the bonds of friendship and mutual support. It was a testament to the transformative power of empathy and the richness of the human spirit, proving that no matter the circumstances, we are all capable of great kindness and change.